Hello dear viewer, in this video I'll be explaining my motives, process, some details and my experience behind the scenes when it comes to making character cross-section, by covering all 4 in dedicated sections. Starting off immediately with the first of those 4, my motives, there are 4 major ones. First is, it's a form of enacting Scarletism. Scarletism values self-improvement, helping others and innovation, so I study characters as to improve my own writing, that's the improvement aspect. I make an essay video on the subject as to break it down in a way where people can learn something from it, that's the helping others aspect. People learn from my videos, which inspires future writers and gives them the knowledge to write better in some way, this being the innovation aspect. Essentially, I make the videos because it's improving my own writing, I share what I learned so other people can learn from it, people learn things from said videos, and all of that fits the main ideals of Scarletism. Motive 2, why writing specifically? Personally, I see writing as an art form, one that's becoming increasingly damaged by the slop that's being churned out en masse by mainstream media, Hollywood and AAA game studios. And I want to counteract that decay by breaking down complicated writing topics, themes, characters, etc. in my essay videos, so people can actually see how they work and maybe learn a thing or two, which in turn can inspire new writers to make something of actual quality instead of the grey, effortless sludge that's being poured out by big mainstream companies. And while I would like to rant about the decline of mainstream media and the churning out of slop, that's best reserved for a dedicated video. Motive 3, I just enjoy making character cross-section. I find it satisfying to make something that helps me improve and gives others an opportunity to as well. And last for the motive section, motive 4, I didn't want to be stuck making meaningless 4chan green text slop. I was bored of making such low effort crap when I knew I could do better. If I did stay to making 4chan slop, I would have stagnated, never learning to draw properly, write, compose scenes, make better videos, etc. among other skills I picked up. And continuing to make it would only contribute to the worsening collective brain rot of the current generation too, which would be antithetical to doing all of this. And with that, that concludes my 4 motives for making character cross-section. Now to move on to the second section of the video, that being my process. When it comes to my process for making character cross-section videos, there's around 8 steps. First is I decide on the topic for the video. Usually it's something I already know about or have some experience with, or it's something I have interest in or just think would be cool to talk about, especially if it's a viewer suggestion I particularly like, those are always great. 2. I look into the topic and check various sources, official websites, wikis, gameplay footage, etc. for all relevant information, which I cross-compare as to make sure there's no conflicts or mistakes slipping through to the best of my ability. If I do make mistakes, I clarify them in the description usually, or in the video if I catch them during editing. Step 3, I collect all my best sources, make notes where needed for context, sometimes making notes on things I feel strongly about in particular or feel are important or relevant, and form a general script from there. For example, in my recent Dead Space video talking about unitology, I talk about the marker at one point and I had to open up a separate page exclusively for that, and I had to do that to give the necessary context for it to make sense. So very often, I'm not just researching the topic of a video, I'm researching things related to it so I can build up necessary context so that the viewer can have the best understanding possible. But anyway, however, how much is script and improvisation varies from video to video. In fact, that mention of unitology was completely unscripted for this video, and serves as a good example. But anyway, sometimes I write a script, I look over it while recording and struggle because it feels weird. So I just improvise and reword it on the fly to make it make sense, or pronounce it in a way where it flows properly. Step 4, speaking of which, as I'm recording, I'll record in segments, usually around 5 to 8 seconds each. That way, if I mess up, I can just redo the part. Saves me having to record it all in one go, listen to it all and cut out all the mistakes manually, leaving the opportunity for some to be missed. Speaking of audio clips, this is the 59th audio clip, and now 60. But yeah, that brings us on to step 5. Once all that's done, I make the recordings into a single MP3 file, remove any background noise in Audacity, which is usually the background static of my microphone, and make that into a new audio file which is tagged as clean. Said file becoming the audio you are now listening to. Next is step 6, which is pretty much just gathering relevant footage, images, putting the video itself together and deciding on background music, which takes us to step 7, actually getting the music. What I like to do here is I like to use music from the source material so it fits the topic of the video in question. For example, during my Dead Space Unitology video, I used music from the first, second, and third game, and the DLC from the third game. But anyway, once I've got my chosen music, I put it into the video, and that brings us on to step 8, in which I render it in 1080p, make a thumbnail, and publish it, for you all to enjoy. And with that, now to discuss some details about the process, which is the third section of this video. As you can probably tell, most of my effort goes into research and recording, which I will agree on. Those two aspects are the most time consuming when making a CCS episode. If I had to guess how much time those two take up, I'd say around 60%, give or take depending on the topic. I wish there was some way to speed the process up without compromising the quality, and no, AI is not an option. It's prone to making mistakes and only doing surface level analysis at best. But unfortunately, there's no way to speed it up as far as I know without a great loss of quality. Overall, making a regular CCS video around 10 to 15 minutes can be done in one day if I have total free time with no distractions. But longer videos like my Dead Space Unitology one, which is 40 minutes long, or my video on the Cannibal Natives from the Forest, which is 44 minutes long, can take up to 3 days to make without interruptions. And when I actually made that one on the Forest, I think it actually took more than 3 days because I kept being interrupted. But anyway, assuming it's 3 days, doing a rough bit of math, that equals to around 14 minutes of fully edited video per day. Which means while I could in theory make a short CCS video every day, in practicality I can't due to IRL obligations and the obvious fact I'll get burned out, which would greatly diminish the quality, which is antithetical to the whole point of making CCS in the first place, in turn ruining the experience for everyone. Speaking of experience, that brings us to the last major section of the video. There is a subsection after this, but we'll get to that later. Anyway, from my experience, making CCS has its ups and downs. On the upsides, I very much enjoy making CCS, knowing that what I do makes it easier for people to understand writing. I enjoy knowing that people will be inspired by what I'm doing and create things of higher quality. And that all of this can lead to something better, the things I've learned along the way being a good example. And I absolutely love putting out a video and seeing other people enjoy it. It makes me genuinely happy to see other people enjoy what I do. But on the downsides, however, some topics really suck to cover. I think they're good ideas initially, but I get halfway in and realize they're just not fun and I end up hating it. But I push through anyway as to have not wasted my time on a project that's not going to be released. And so far I have not given up on a single CCS episode during production, and I'm proud of that. Albeit there are some characters I'm just straight up not going to cover, and I will list those in a minute. Recording and research take way longer than I would like, as I mentioned before, but there's little I can really do outside of that except pushing to be better at the recording process. And lastly, I wish the videos did better in the algorithm, albeit you, dear viewer, can actually help with that. By sharing, liking, commenting, and subscribing, all 4 of those boost engagement, which the algorithm absolutely loves. But yeah, those are the ups and downs. In summary, it's satisfying. I enjoy what I do and I like the outcomes, albeit it can be difficult and it can be tedious at times. Anyway, with that, here are the aforementioned characters I will not be covering and some reasons why. Also, consider these as examples of stuff I'm not going to cover in general based on the reasoning I will provide. Going straight into that list, first is Eddie Gluskin from Outlast Whistleblower. Almost none of the footage with him would be usable on YouTube today as there's too much gore and nudity. And there's just not enough on him to warrant a video anyway, especially given the lack of usable footage, it's pretty much just not worth doing a video. 2. The Creeper from Jeepers Creepers, because the creator of those movies is a convicted nonce, like actual convicted and charged. Dead Meat did a video about this one on one of their channels, and I'm gonna link that for context. And thirdly, the minions from Despicable Me and various other characters like them. There is pretty much nothing to cover there. And with that, those are 3 characters I'm not covering and the reasoning why. Also, another thing you will never see me use here is AI, nor will I take sponsorships or willingly run ads on my videos. Albeit, unfortunately, YouTube still runs ads without my consent. But there is a certain something made specifically to resolve that, which you can install on your browser. Hell, some browsers have one built in, like Brave for example. But yeah, that actually brings us to the final section, since we have concluded the main 4. In this section, this is where I want to say thank you to all my subscribers and those who enjoy CCS along with my other content. I hope this video has been informative and answers any questions you have. If not, do ask them in the comments, I will gladly respond. But with that, I say goodbye. I'll be seeing you around in the next video. Good night.